listening to Driving Law, a podcast by Kyla Lee about all things related to the rules of the road.
Welcome to another episode of the Driving Law Podcast. Today, joining me, we have a very extra special guest, my friend and criminal defense colleague from Montana, Matt Dodd. Hi, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Kyle. I sure appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you agreed to do this because, well, first of all, we've been talking forever about having you come up to Canada and us doing like some sort of cross-examination seminar together, but, this will be the teaser for it.
All right. No, that sounds good. Yeah, we'll make it happen.
So, why don't we start by tell us a little bit about your practice, where you are, what your typical caseload is like.
Yeah, for sure. So I run kind of a general practice firm in Montana. We do family, criminal, and civil work. Right now, it's probably more criminal than anything, with maybe an emphasis on DUI stuff. Although we've got vehicular homicide, we've got a murder case, and some other fun stuff. And then lately, we've been doing a fair bit of plaintiff's work. So I was lucky enough to get in front of a federal jury in January and hit a $5.5 million verdict there, and just got a $1.4 million attorney fee award 2 Fridays ago on that case, which is awesome.
Wow.
Because it's a super nice client. No shit. We ain't got paid yet. But the client is the nicest gentleman I've ever met and very deserving, and was mistreated by his insurance company for a number of years. And the jury made their determination very clear.
Good. Well, I'm glad you were able to get them justice. Now, your claim to fame is that you and your father write what is probably regarded as the best cross-examination book out there.
At least in America. I think yours probably beats this in Canada, right?
I don't think so. I don't know. I wish. And so tell me a little bit about, like, if you were to be telling people today top 5 tips for cross-examination, what would you give them?
Oh, shoot. I think number one, it's not as hard as people think it is. If you're prepared, if you know what your theory is, what your themes are, it's much easier to cross-examine because you understand where you want to be at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that initial part, that preparation part, so that sometimes people leave out. I remember talking to a guy years ago, and he said, "Hey, will you help me with this cross?" I said, "Sure. What is your goal for this witness?" And he said, "I don't know. I should probably get one." But that's the trick, right? If you know what you want to accomplish, if you know, okay, this witness, these are the facts I need to get out, then it becomes really easy, or a lot easier at the very least. But if you're not sure what you want to accomplish, if you're not sure what the story is you want to tell, either big picture or through that particular witness, I think it gets really hard, because then you're just picking up little individual facts. You're not putting together a story. And I expect you're a good storyteller in the courtroom.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be.
Yeah, right. And as criminal defense attorneys, oftentimes the characters in our story are not ones that can help tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
They're sitting at, our table with us, or they're co-defendants. And so we often have to tell the story through their witnesses. And so if we can do that, then we get things done in a way that I think is persuasive and informative to the jury. And if we're teaching them, and that's a big part of this, we are teachers as lawyers. If we're the best teacher in the room, we're probably going to get at least the best outcome we can get for that particular case, for that set of facts, right?
Yeah. What made you, obviously you have the connection through your dad, but what made you so interested in cross-examination as like sort of a focus of your work?
I'm probably getting cross-examined every day as a damn kid. That's just the way I learned to interact with people, for better or for worse.
Okay.
And so I find myself doing that, cross-examining people just out in the world, and I'm like, oh no, not everybody else interacts this way. You got to stop.
Yeah.
It's not healthy.
Your friends are at the bar with you and they're like, stop cross-examining us.
Yeah. Like, I'm not enjoying this at all. This is why we don't invite you places. But I mean, really, and again, I'll circle back as a criminal defense attorney, our witnesses are usually bad witnesses. They've either done things or been accused of doing things. Um, and so a lot of our story comes out through the other side.
Yep.
Even in our civil cases and our family cases, it's extraordinarily effective. You think about family cases, and it's often a he said, she said kind of fight. They were there, nobody else was there. There's not a recording, and so you're having to use your own witnesses. And in a family case, everybody's self-involved, right? Everybody is out for themselves, and the judges know that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get your guy up there and he says, "I'm a great dad. I'm just the best dad ever." And you're like, "Bullshit, man. You took your 8-year-old to Deadpool, which is a great movie, but not appropriate for 8-year-olds. And you sat 5 rows back with your girlfriend and made out while your 8-year-old was up there by themselves." And this isn't a true story because that would be inappropriate to tell. But if you had that case, it's challenging. But if you can get But if you can get mom to say some nice things about him, or you can show that the therapist that mom hired is biased or hasn't given dad a chance, or that mom hasn't done the things that the judge ordered her to do, judges get upset and they start working with you a little more. And you can protect your client from putting them up there,
Yeah.
which, we always, not always, but often do in criminal cases, but I'll even do it in my civil cases sometimes.
I think if you think about sort of structuring your cross-examination around your theory of the case or the story that you're telling, it's a lot more effective because every story has bad parts. And you just gotta, work them into the narrative to produce the best ending to the story possible.
Yeah, no, that's right. Clients don't come to us if everything's right. Cases don't get to trial if everything's right. I mean, everybody's got warts by the time we get to trial. And so you have to be able to manage that story. And like you say, you got to be able to own the stuff that's bad and explain why it doesn't matter perhaps as much as the other side says it does, or why, even in spite of that, your client deserves to be found not guilty, or your client deserves to get the kids, or your client deserves to be, taken care of by the jury.
When it comes to DUI cases, is there anything that or driving cases generally, is there anything that you recommend doing differently in a cross-examination?
That's a great question. I I think one thing that throws my clients is that I'm really nice to cops.
Mhm.
And I have to tell them, like, "Hey, you're gonna see me smile at this person. You're gonna see me make jokes with them. I'm probably gonna make fun of myself and give them some opportunities to pick on me." And I think that throws clients sometimes if they don't know it's coming,
Yep.
because they say, "Wait a minute, is he in bed with this cop? Like, what's the deal?" But from a jury perspective, and I guess I'm guessing a little here because I've never been on a jury, but I don't think juries today like fist fights necessarily. It makes folks uncomfortable. The confrontation is less accepted out in society than it was, when I was a kid in the '80s, or when my dad was a kid in the '50s and '60s. And so it's more of a conversation than a confrontation. And if you can be that way, I think it's easier for the jury to listen and feel like they can participate, and it makes the conversation or the information more accessible to them, which at the end of the day is what we want, right? We don't need to be a fighter or defensive necessarily. We need to be a teacher. And if we're
Yep.
teaching in a way that juries are listening, then I think we get better outcomes.
Yeah, I think also, it helps to control the witness better. Like, if you come out swinging, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, immediately people are going to get defensive. Whereas, if you're having a conversation with the witness, if you're, laughing, joking, if you're showing your humanity and your fallibility, they're a lot more willing to admit the mistakes that they made too.
Oh, for sure. And it throws them off, particularly law enforcement, because they are trained that we as defense attorneys are aggressive and we're going to attack them and we're going to point out all the dumb things they did. And you can do all those things, but you can do it with a smile. You don't have to be, what's the right way to say it? You can go on the offensive without being offensive. You don't have to be that person. Um, just in a recent case I had, it was a law enforcement witness, but in a civil case. And I never met him before, but I'm real comfortable talking to cops, right? Because we do it all the time. And so I see him come in the courtroom, and I went over and shook his hand. I said, "Hey, I'm, representing this gentleman in this case, and just wanted to introduce myself and ask if you had any questions." And we started talking and realized we had all these connections just from life. And I was able to use that 10-minute conversation to cross-examine him in a way that he never saw coming, nor did the other side, and wrap all those facts I learned in that 10-minute conversation into the theory of our case and really undermine what the other side was trying to do with him.
Nice.
It was pretty effective because my co-counsel turned to me and said, "You better not ever get pulled over in that jurisdiction again." And because the cop walked out and did not want to shake my hand at the end of that cross-examination. But I made him do it in front of the jury anyhow. Um, so, just being a person, I think helps, and being able to have a conversation helps.
Yeah. I think, with driving cases, DUI cases in particular, I find it's often different when you're dealing with like a police officer as a witness versus a civilian because you have more opportunities for impeachment, but you also have somebody who's trained on how to weasel their way out of things. Whereas, like,
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
obvious if the civilians come, try to come up with an explanation on the stand for why they said something differently.
Yeah.
When the police do, you're like, "Yeah, okay, nice try," but
Yeah. And I think it can be dangerous because we get a little on those DUI cases. We do so many of them, right? We do so many of those crosses. It's easy to get lazy sometimes
yeah.
and say, "Well, I've done this cross 100 times, or I've crossed this cop before. They're gonna be, it's gonna be fine." And then forget that they're out there learning. They're paying attention to us too. They're hopefully getting better every time. A
Yeah, I
and you
mean,
have to be aware.
do you get the same feedback from police officers that I do often that, like, if they actually listen and they're open-minded about the cross-examination, that's some of the best training they'll ever receive on how to do their job better?
I think the ones that wanna get better, absolutely. Because I'm in little jurisdictions where I interact with law enforcement all the time, just, at the farmer's market, at the store, and we know each other. We know each other's families and, respect each other. We understand we have different jobs to do, but the ones that are good pay attention. And, I had one that says, "That's the one time you'll get that in on me." And he was not wrong. Like, he figured out how to do it better the next time. So, I had to figure out a different way to get him. But,
Yeah.
that's what we get paid to do is, you know, help our clients get where they need to be.
Now you go all over the place, teaching cross-examination. What like, I've noticed with this sort of younger generation of lawyers, especially because they came up through law school and now they're undergraduate as well with, like, online classes and through the pandemic, but there's kind of a lost art, of, like, interpersonal stuff. Um,
Uh,
I don't know, I'm not phrasing it correctly, but I hope you know what I mean. Uh
yeah.
how do you deal with that when in your classes now?
I mean, I'm old fashioned. I go shake people's hands. I drive 3 hours for a 5-minute hearing so that I can sit around the courthouse and gossip with everybody and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I try and encourage people to do that because it's easy. And in a positive too, like this conversation is easy because you can do it from your car and I can do it from my office and we're in two different countries.
Mhm.
Right. But there's a benefit to being there in person and knowing folks and having that background. And in this situation, I bet it's easier for you. And I know it's easier for me because we do know each other and we've hung out and we've had a beer.
Yep.
And so even if you only make an appearance one time, that shows the court that you're deferential. It shows the staff that you're willing to be there. It shows your client that you're willing to drive, 6 hours for 5 minutes of showtime. And I think that makes a difference to everybody. And it gives you some credibility the next time when you call and say, "Hey, Judge, I can't make it for this. Do you mind if I'm on Zoom?" And they're like, "Of course not, Mr. Dodd. You're always great about that." Or, the clerk gives me a dozen eggs that her chickens laid earlier that day. I mean, just little crazy things in small towns.
Do you find though, like, with the students when you're teaching them, like, in your courses that there's, like, a more of a learning curve now because of the sort of less socialization that people are doing in terms of, like, how to get the rapport with the witness, get them into the pattern of saying, "Yes, yes."
For sure. Maybe a little bit. I think it's tougher. There's, it's easier to be lazy now.
Yes.
Because, I talk about my kids. I mean, they're in their room all the time and they can FaceTime with their friends and text with their friends. But, you miss that going back and forth like you talk about.
Yeah.
So I think it is a little trickier for them these days.
And, oh, gee, you just said something and now I've totally forgotten what it was that I was going to ask you. Prompted something in my brain, but oh well, it's gone now. Gone forever. Do you have any courses coming up that you want to advertise to our listeners?
Oh, shoot. We have some in-person courses, and we do in-person training for groups of 8, which is really nice because you get that in-person like we talk about.
Mhm.
And you can get to them by, where is it? I got to pull up the Dodd Trial Skills Clinics. If you Google that or your search engine of choice, it'll pop it right up. And we've got some clinics coming up this fall. I believe there's one in Chicago in October. And then we're always willing to come to you. So if you get 8 together, then we'll show up. We do a bunch of in-house clinics for firms, which is kind of fun because you have folks that have a rapport with each other.
Yep.
And so that does make it a little easier. I think it makes it a little more intimidating too because you're out in front of your peers or your boss or your associate or whomever. And so you got to have your poop in a group.
You're being judged more than you would normally be.
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say every once in a while at our firm, I will teach the lawyers cross-examination, and I always feel like very on the spot, like, oh my God, I actually have to know what
Right.
we're not doing it in court, you're used to it, right? But like somehow doing it for your colleagues is harder.
I think it's always more intimidating, particularly if they're less experienced because they have this picture of you that may or may not be accurate.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking for you, but for me, I mean, I had a prosecutor say, "Man, every time we got together, you beat me." He's a defense attorney now and a great defense attorney, a wonderful person. And I wanted to say to him, I was like, "I'm pretty sure I lost every case you and I tried," but he had remembered it completely different.
Wow.
So look, I mean, just getting out there and doing this is important. Having those conversations, whether it's at the grocery store or the bar or the mechanic shop or just somebody on the street, it helps us to have conversations with people, whether it's on Zoom or in person. And the more practice we get telling our client story, because people think what we do is really interesting. And sometimes it is, but often it's not.
A lot of cross-examination is a lot of boring questions.
Oh yeah, and some of our cases are, they're interesting to lay people that don't do it for a living. But for us, you're like, I've done 15 of this case.
Yep.
But having the willingness to tell that story to, I don't know, the guy at the gym or the person who's changing your oil or whatever it is, they say, "Hey, you got anything interesting coming up?" And you're like, "Actually," and trying out a theory on them or trying out a theme. And if they laugh at you, that's not a great sign, unless you're looking for a laugh.
Yep, fair.
But if they say, "Oh, tell me more," then okay, it's something to work with. And I think just practicing helps.
Yep.
Because criminal defense attorneys get in the courtroom a lot. Civil attorneys don't. I tried a case against lawyers who've been practicing 20 years, and they had, I think, between the two of them, 5 jury trials in their 20 years. And you and I might get 5 of those in a year or more.
We don't do jury trials for DUI here, but I've definitely had more than 5 trials in the last 60 days.
Yeah, right. And so we have to get that practice. You got to get those reps in like everything else. And you can't always do it in the courtroom. So whether they're doing clinics with you, Kyla, whether they're doing clinics with me, and we got one coming up in London next April, if anybody wants to travel.
It's tempting.
Whether it's just talking to people on the street or cross-examining your kids for fun, you're getting practice.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your tips. And now I'm going to go find this London one because I've always wanted to go to London. I'm going to see if I can fit it in my schedule.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's beautiful there. Lots of great court history, if that's your thing too. Beautiful architecture. And you can get those cool little robes, or not robes, wigs.
Robes already. I just need the wig.
Yeah, they'll even sell them to regular folks because I won a Renaissance last time. All right. Well, thanks again for having me, and we'll find a way to get you down here in Montana and help us out.
Thank you so much. And that's
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Driving Law. I'm Kyla Lee at Acumen Law, and if you have any cross-examination related issues, you can either contact Matt Dodd and check out Dodd Trial Skills, or contact us at vancouvercriminallaw.com, or tune in next week for another exciting episode of Driving Law.